Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for tuning in to our live stream this afternoon, talking about the current legislation in Tallahassee set to impact all of Florida. And we're talking today about the Stop Woke Act, HB 7, and the implications it has. And really excited to be joined with a really incredible panel. I look forward to mentioning our guest here. We are joined with Frank Peterman from the Florida Education Association. Thank you for joining. Would you like to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Frank Peterman III. I work for the Florida Education Association as a excuse me, as a community organizer and not regional specialist, organizing specialist. And so I just kind of connect a lot of the things we care about with community groups like For Our Future, and kind of just connect and organize around those common values.
Awesome. Really glad to have you here and look forward to hearing your perspective. And of course, here with our other team members across the state, For Our Future in Tampa and South Florida. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Bernice for our friends in the West Central area.
Hey everyone, my name is Bernice. I'm the regional director in West Central Florida. So if you are in Tampa, St. Petersburg area, you're one of my neighbors. I'm super excited to be on. Thanks so much for joining us today, Frank. And I will pass it to my colleague Juan to introduce himself.
Thank you, Bernice. And I hope everybody can hear me clearly. My internet connection is kind of weak. It's kind of like I'm overseas. But I am here in Miami. My name is Juan Moore. I'm the regional director for Our Future for the southern region. So that's Miami-Dade County, Broward County, and Palm Beach County. And I'm so glad to be here. This is important legislation that we definitely need to amplify. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, really excited to get started. And of course, this is a super impactful piece of legislation to highlight. I think it is going to have a lot of impact. So I think it's important to get the word out there as to what your legislators are doing and what bills would mean if enacted. So this is the current legislative session. It lasts 60 days. We're already a good few weeks into it. And during these time, the bills that are proposed go in both the House and the Senate. And when they pass both the House and the Senate, they become law. And that's what governs us here in the state. So specifically, one of the bills that have been proposed in both chambers is the being titled the Stop Woke Act. And this is impacting how race is taught at businesses as well as in schools. And important to highlight, as we had talked in other legislative wrap-ups, that this is an ALEC model bill. And I wanted to just take a moment to recap on that. And I know Bernice has gotten to talk about it a little bit. I just thought I'd turn it over to you if you would have a few words to say. What does it mean when we say that something is an ALEC model bill?
Yeah, so just to share about what ALEC is an organization, and what they do is they create legislation and send it to legislators and have the exact wording basically become what legislators submit for law. So ALEC is actually a harmful organization. They're conservative leaning. And so a lot of the bills that we'll find that they sponsor are bills that are harmful to our communities and impact disproportionately people of color, the LGBTQ community, and things like that.
Yeah. And of course, it's added again with this legislation, talking about the Stop Woke Act. So just, when looking at legislation, add it to the pile of generally and frequently bad to terrible bills that really are just milled out and sent to legislators for them to submit. Just to go onwards to details, I know that one of the impacts that this is going to have is on our schools. And to read out the bill, would it prohibit teaching students in grades K through 12 all the way to the end of high school anything that could make individuals feel responsible for historic wrongs because of their race, color, sex, or national origin. And so that's some of the text that's included, and wanted to ask and open it up to Frank with the education side of things in Florida. What do you see as the potential impact of this bill? How would you see this impacting teachers?
Yeah, so thanks again for having me on, David. I think our concern is that, this really isn't what the legislature should be focused on right now. We have a shortage of, I think, about 4,300 educators right now. So the fact that this is what we're talking about in the middle of the largest teacher shortage, major shortfalls in funding, it's just really disappointing. But on the other side of that, this is what drives people from the profession. This is why we can't keep teachers, right? If I can't give an honest discussion about history, that's really problematic for the classroom. One of the more problematic things we heard kind of during testimony is somebody during a committee meeting asked the sponsor of the bill, does this mean that we can't say the Holocaust is bad? And there was a lot of double speak, but essentially what he says is you got to tell two sides of it. And the thought is there are no two sides, right? That was a bad thing that happened. Full stop. Shouldn't have happened. Full stop. Like there's no room for debate on that. And there was a question asked about slavery, and the response was similar. So that is really problematic when we think about that. And I think the other piece of it is it's really just a messaging bill. Like it definitely has like very real implications if it is passed, but it's more so about getting conservative folks riled up ahead of an election. It's really about trying to, for our governor, it gives him something to tell his base he did. So it's really sad that, our teachers are being sacrificed really for an election for the governor. That's really troubling.
I felt like I saw Juan about to say something, but I wasn't sure if I was going to wait, but no.
Yeah, I was definitely going to say something. I was like just looking at some of these articles here and just wanted to chime in and just for one agree with Frank in the sense that there's so many more important things, even concerning teachers, the teacher shortage, teacher pay, COVID in the schools, so many things that could be addressed. But when you look at this, this was centered around this critical race theory being taught into schools. And so a lot of people think that it just embodies racism. So it also embodies things like sexual orientation, gender fluidity. So again, there's no substantial reason that you would want to take this from our children, from the articulum. And it also shows room for the oppression of teachers. We've seen this governor sue school systems for not abiding to his awful regulations against mask bans, mask mandates in the school. So I wonder what happens to those who don't abide or make their white counterpart uncomfortable in these conversations, right? I'm sure it would be less of a reprimand from this governor and more of a fine or being fired and just creating a whole array of other problems. Can
I add one more thing, David? So I kind of did, and Juan kind of brought this part up for me about the suing piece. So this is an ALEC model bill, and it's passed in several other states, including Texas. And what we've seen there is exactly what Juan is talking about. There are lawsuits being filed against educators. We've seen them essentially strip all Black authors from the curriculum. So we are concerned about the big implications of this bill. From my understanding right now, it's not a priority, but we know how fast things can change in the legislative session. So yeah, it's very concerning. And the bigger piece is whether you're Black, white, Latino, Asian, we all have to teach an honest history of what happened or it's like they said, people who don't know their history, it's doomed to repeat itself. And the other piece is kind of what we're seeing at a school board level is connected with this, right? All the book banning, all the kind of attacks on school boards, like all this stuff is connected. And what it's really trying to do is kind of what I said earlier, gin up people for this election. It's become a culture war political issue. Like it's no longer about right and wrong. It's what can I gain from this politically? So it's really sad that that's what's happening to our classrooms.
It's sad, and I also think like how this like impacts students of color and families of color. When we think about being told that you don't want to make white people feel guilty or uncomfortable due to past racism. For me, when I hear that as somebody who does racial justice trainings, I'm like, whoa, because like part of growth and like our growing process as humans is feeling a little uncomfortable, right? Like that's why we have growing pains. And so, it's not necessarily to, we want to sit around and like shame white people for the past history, but it's important that we talk honestly about what has happened in the past. And, slavery and racism continues to be an issue.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned the training part, because that filters into this is in a manner of speaking a two-pronged bill. We are looking at the impact that it would have on schools and the school system, but there's also language, of course, here that impacts businesses, and one of those targets is that employment practices or training programs also get put to similar light. That if an individual feels guilt because of past racism, that could be construed as an unlawful employment practice and is subject, like had mentioned, to lawsuits. And to be optimistic, obviously, maybe this is all a big stunt to get people excited that are on a certain end of the political spectrum. But it is, of course, an incredible shame that the entire levers of government are used to that effect, and it's also a dice roll. Republicans have control of the House and the Senate, and it's not out of the question that something like this comes along party lines if there was enough political motivation behind it. And then what starts off as this is clearly here to get some people excited, turns into a real impact. But of course, this here highlights what this means for businesses that may have sensitivity trainings. How can you be a better employee? How can you work better in a team? And keeping in mind that these are all historical factors that should be considered. And this is gonna have an impact on that, and hopefully just receives a great deal of opposition to prevent it from even becoming really entertained. But I know that, the impact on businesses is the other side of the coin here, looking at how schools have to manage, but then also that this has a wider effect and could really be subject to any given employee feeling like this inclusivity training I'm a part of was really something that I take issue with, and now I'm going to take it to a court.
Well, kind of to that point, David, it's not just businesses. So not only does it affect kind of like a teacher teaching certain things in the classroom, it also talks about the Department of Education reviewing district professional developments. So that is extremely problematic, because what it sounds like it's going to go after is stuff like culturally responsive teaching, making schools a safe place for LGBTQ plus students, and a lot of the things that we've fought for years. And the idea that, teachers are somehow indoctrinating students to be gay, or that they're making them more woke is crazy. First of all, I mean, most of our teachers don't have, my mom is a teacher, by the way, they barely have enough time to use the restroom, let alone take the time to indoctrinate someone. So it's offensive. And then also, these are things our teachers need to know. They're teaching students in poverty. Like Bernice said, they're teaching students that are in communities of color. They're teaching students that are in the LGBT plus community. So to say now that you can't even train people on how to deal with those people or not even acknowledge their existence is it's disheartening and problematic, to say the least.
Yeah, and I just chime in and give the audience some of the examples where this came in or comes into play. I know once a couple of years back in Starbucks, they had an incident with two young Black males who didn't buy, I guess, a Starbucks coffee, but were doing business work and got booted out Starbucks, and then in turn started training practices or a seminar, some type of program to teach cultural awareness. And also this what comes to my mind for the audience, two examples. One example that came to my mind was another example of hairstyles in the workplace, hairstyles in schools that were attacked, no cultural awareness of us being able to style our hair in certain ways. And so these things would absolutely be addressed and attacked by this bill, these pieces of legislation.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I want to add is like this legislation is just going to cause so many lawsuits, and it's going to be lawsuits about like people being made to feel guilty, which like what, like no shade to anybody, but as a Black person, you know how many times I've been made to feel uncomfortable because of racism? If only I had $1 for any time that happened, or if I could sue when that happened, then like imagine how much money like people would make from that. It just blows my mind that this is something that's really seriously being considered to be law when we have so many other issues in our state. We have, like Frank was mentioning, we have a teacher shortage. We have an affordable housing crisis in our state. We have so much that's going on that could be addressed by lawmakers, and their focus on pushing these ALEC bills and pushing bills that are, bread and butter for their constituency.
Yeah, well, definitely wanted to cover those core items from HB 7 and as it was SB 148, and so that's really the big thing. And want to of course ask folks, of course, in the audience and members of the panel. I mean, we got to talk about the impact on Florida teachers and businesses, and if there's anything left behind, like aspects that people should really know when knowing whether their legislator or representative has a stance for or against this.
I think the biggest thing it means is you're already kind of under the gun as a teacher, and now this just kind of ratchets up the pressure a little bit more. And so it's, like I said, it's very problematic to propose something like this in the middle of a teacher shortage. Folks are underpaid and underappreciated, and now you're villainizing them even more with legislation like this. And I do want to say one thing. Excuse me, I can't speak to the business piece as much, but part of what we've kind of said at FEA is, if the state is going to start coming after school districts for teaching culturally responsive education or making schools a safe place for LGBTQ plus students, we're going to train our teachers up. We'll fill in that gap. If that is the position that the Department of Education and the governor are going to take, FEA is going to make sure that we're on the side of right, because there's right and wrong. There is no two sides to slavery, Holocaust, any of these horrible things that happened in our history. I just wanted to say that piece.
Well, 100%, definitely glad to hear, and of course, definitely appreciate the perspective. And I know, Juan, it looked like you were about to say something too. I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh, no, I wasn't going to say nothing. Pretty much everything that Frank said. I mean, it's when I look at this question, what does it mean for Florida teachers and businesses? It means we're absolutely going backwards. Backwards, almost to the Jim Crow era. Imagine Ron DeSantis replacing history with his story up to 12th grade. It's an atrocity, or whoever's story, and our story isn't involved in that. And so I just think it would be us going backwards. That's what it would mean for Florida teachers and businesses.
Well, definitely wanted to get a discussion and get to hear from different perspectives as to what this is, and if folks watching haven't gotten to learn much about what is going on in Tallahassee, what new laws are being considered, this is certainly one of them, and an important one to be aware of. And so wanted to just share some information for the presenters. So we're here with 4 Our Future Florida, and of course the Florida Education Association. Definitely some information to follow both of us at. And I think that the FEA has a petition form or some sort of action item link that got shared at the beginning. Would you tell us a little about what that was, the issues action link?
Yeah. So we've tried to get folks to kind of get to our website, and we tried to give like a breakdown of the bills that are affecting us. And so if you follow the link, it has some more information on House Bill 7 and Senate Bill 148, kind of some of the impacts, and some talking points if you do want to come up here to Tallahassee, or if you're able to talk to your legislator at a local level, just kind of explain to them why this is not good, why it's not going to help Floridians at all, really, and why it's not the type of thing that we need. So that's really what's in the link. And if you go to our website, there's different actions that you can take. You can text the number and get certain action updates. So as HB 7 and Senate Bill 148 move through the legislature, you'll get text updates. We do patch through calls to legislators. We do email alerts. We just try to keep people in the loop as things are happening, because unfortunately, things happen very quickly during legislative sessions. So we want to keep people informed.
Awesome. Well, definitely thank you for sharing that information. Hope if you're watching that you get a chance to click through and sign up and take a look at both our orgs. And with that, I know we're going to continue along and just sort of get a chance to close out and share that, of course, this is the very beginning of Black History Month. And so here at FOF, we are hosting some events next week. We will have a racial justice training. So, if this passes, we might get sued, but we'll be hosting that next week on Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. So look forward to seeing that, and wanted to open it up. There's a few other ways to stay involved. You can find us at florida.us/Facebook groups to join any of our groups in Tampa area, South Florida, North Florida, and here, Orlando, Central Florida area. So would definitely look forward to staying in touch. And thank you for taking the time to watch. Thank you, Frank, for joining us. And as always, hope everyone has a great rest of your week. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you. Later, Gators.